Hello, welcome to the Art of Renovation Live. I'm your host, Paul Foster from Contact Renovations and Custom Homes. And Happy New Year. First show of the new year. And today we're talking about kitchen cabinet design. And there is a lot to talk about in regards to this topic. So my guest today is Rebecca Gagne from Cucina. And we're going to get into it and talk a bit about things you need to consider as far as your layout's concerned, design options, options for the cabinets themselves. And I can see Rebecca has sent me a request to join. She's ready to go. Before I pull her in, I'm going to give her an introduction here. Give me a second. So Rebecca considers herself a cabinet nerd and is passionate about all things kitchen. As a member of the NKBA, which she can explain for us later, since 2009, Rebecca is honored to have received the Tomato Kitchen Design Award in 2014, as well as being featured in House editorials in 2014, 15, and 17. Rebecca's success in the cabinet industry is in part due to her interior design technology diploma. Planning the overall space and function from an interior design perspective has contributed to Best of House awards. She continues to educate herself on this ever-changing industry, and she loves collaborating with builders, renovators, and designers on unique projects. So awesome. Rebecca, I'll send you the invite to get in here, and we'll start talking about some cool kitchen options. Wait for her to pull in here. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Very good. I like your background.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was going to do it in a kitchen, but I thought, you know what? We'll see lots of kitchens, so.
Yeah, true enough. Well, welcome to the show, if you can call it that. It's just a conversation, really. And, I think today the goal here is to help people understand what their options are, but also where they should start in regards to their design. Like, we're working on a kitchen together right now, and we can really see the evolution of what the client wants, but how to make that actually make sense within the design and the layout, right? And so there's a long way to go before you start picking what door profile you want, what handles you want, what color. Realistically, that stuff is some of the last details we get into. The layout's key, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, it's quite a process. You start with the big items, kind of work your way down, because it can be quite overwhelming from the start. So that's absolutely right. Start from the basics with the layout and then work from there.
Yeah, like I always say throughout the show, regardless of the topic, it's all about having a good plan. If you start off your project with a good plan, I think you're far more likely to have a successful project and a satisfied client and team at the end of the project. So I think, people beware about just rushing into your new kitchen thinking that you know what you want. It's really important to talk to somebody with a clue, whether it be your contractor or your designer or someone like Rebecca, who can really look at your space and go, well, look, based on your layout or what space you have for a footprint, here are our options. How many people are going to use the space? I'll let you explain that stuff in a second. Before we get into it, we have a giveaway item today. So it's this beautiful maple cutting board. Can you describe it? What is it? The brand? Booze?
I have it. It's Booze.
Yeah.
Here it is.
All right.
Really
That's a beauty.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've changed the rules of play a little bit for how you can qualify to win. All you have to do is comment. If you can be creative and maybe ask a question, that would be great. But you can just say, hey, and you're going to be in the draw. At the end of the show, we'll announce the winner. It's a random thing. My apologies now to my wife. No, you still can't win. But in any case, so thanks for offering that up. So I guess let's just start with, and I sent you the outline, and I want to talk a bit about, you mentioned there's some layout considerations you always discuss with your client. I think that's a great way to start. So for anybody who's just tuning in, this is the Art Renovation Live. I'm here with Rebecca Gagne from Cucina. We're talking about layout considerations for your kitchen. All right. So I guess fire away and start from the top with the things you usually consider. I'll just show some photos as we're talking, and as you bring things up, I'll try to find photos that support what you're discussing.
Sure, sure. One of the first things I start asking questions about is there one cook or two cooks? Because the way you lay out a kitchen for more than one person varies greatly from 1 to 2 people. I always try to start the kitchen off based on the guidelines set in place by the National Kitchen and Bath Association. So the guidelines are in place for not only safety, but really good function of the kitchen. So we talk about things like landing zones for the main areas, the sink, the stove, the fridge as sort of the main components. We talk about the work triangle. So we want to keep straight lines. We have certain distances that we don't want you to travel further than or shorter than. And there's a variety of those. So kind of working with that. But then within that, then of course we'll want to ask about where will the prep area be? We want that close to a sink and of course across from a cooking space. Are we going to want to include a family organization area in here? You know, do you have small children? Because we all know that they come home with sheets from school and calendars and that type of thing, and you want to keep yourself organized that way. We all have electronics to charge. Good example for this. Yeah, that's a good photo for that. This hidden away space could absolutely have dividers in it for each child. At one point in time, we had sports that we could organize as well, sports calendars and that type of thing. And then again, we can keep some items tucked away in there that are important to keep on hand. Because when we're in the kitchen all the time, that, you know, you're packing lunches, you're signing sheets for school, and that's good to keep handy. Another thing is we talk about physical limitations to the users in the kitchen. Does anyone have any limitations where we need to keep items lower because a client can't reach up high, or again, bend down low? And then again, separate from say a barrier-free type situation, you know, but we have to certainly talk about those. Are you right-handed or left-handed? That'll make a difference on where we're placing a dishwasher. How tall is each person? Because ultimately it's that bottom section of the upper 18 inches of that cabinet and then the 18 inches at the top of the base cabinets. Those are the prime real estate. So we want to make sure we're maximizing storage in those areas. And then we also just kind of discuss what is it they don't like about their kitchen right now. I mean, usually it's a lot of things, but once in a while there's something in their kitchen that they want to keep. They've got this cool little corner situation, or they've got some sort of insert that they're saying, we love this, it works perfectly. So we want to make sure we incorporate something that that they're still really enjoying in their kitchen. Absolutely.
And I guess if I can state the obvious, this would be what is considered truly a custom kitchen. When somebody is taking your home, they're assessing your space, your family, your needs, your preferences, and then we're designing around you. This kitchen becomes an expression of you and your family and is intended to best serve you, right? So that's truly the custom kitchen when you have someone like Rebecca come in there and design right around your needs.
Absolutely. We get to the point sometimes where if we're going to organize a pantry, let's measure your tallest items. Let's measure your shortest items. Let's organize the pantry to maximize the rollouts in between there. Hey, I've gone to the point of measuring my client's legs when she's sitting in a chair to know how much room absolutely she's going to need under her extended table on the island. So, you know, I think that when you're going to do this and do it well and do it once, you know, you're going to do this and enjoy it for a long, long time. Let's just make sure that you love every aspect, and then we can do everything that we can to make it wonderful.
Absolutely. And I'll show you a picture. You can't see it well in this one, but this kitchen we did for a client a few years ago, and she really loved to bake. So at the other end of this long island, there's a lowered baking area where then, you know, as far as like working on the countertop, it was a bit lower for her and designed specifically for her and her height. I can't tell if I still have Rebecca here. It looks like there's some, it's frozen up a little bit. Can anyone give me a thumbs up in the comments if you can still hear me, or is it, are we still live? Well, I don't know. It looks frozen on my end. Okay, we'll try this again. Oh, thanks, and a couple thumbs up. So I'll re-invite Rebecca back in here. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. The live show, you get what you get sometimes. Okay. All right, back.
Hi.
All right. I never, when it starts to freeze, I never know if I'm frozen or you're frozen, and then, you know, because I don't have audio of what people can hear, I'm left guessing. But welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey, I got a question here from Patty PH Designs.
Hi, Patty.
Do you know Patty?
I do, yeah.
All right. So what are some of the new drawer inserts to maximize the reduction of clutter?
Oh, goodness. You know what? Just more of the same, Patty. Nothing super new. Of course, we've got the utensil inserts in a pull-out now, which I think I sent you a photo of that, Paul. It's pull-out on one side of a cooktop with the stainless steel drop-in insert in it. That's kind of a variation of just the inside of a drawer, where you have
to find it, but it's really tough. These pictures are very small at the bottom of my phone.
There it is, the one on the left. So the pull-out on the left shows a stainless steel drop-in canister, and that's something that you can use for utensils instead of just a drawer. I mean, what it does is if you do have, say, a spice insert on the other side, or sorry, pull out rather on the other side, you can balance that out with this type of insert on the left. Is it the best use of space for utensils? I'm not sure. There's a little bit of room around there that I might potentially want to maximize a little bit better, but it certainly makes them really functional right there at the stove for cooking utensils.
Absolutely. We have one question here also from Urban Timber, and they're asking, what are some of the more exciting trends you're seeing in kitchen design?
Oh, it's nice to see some color coming in again. Saw a lot of gray kitchens for a while. Gray, white kitchens, of course, are always classic, but it's nice to see pops of color. There's a kitchen that Cucina Bella did, right? It's lovely. It's white, it's gray, it's very classic, but it's nice to be able to work with some color. I like to see some warm wood trends coming in, to see some more wood grain again. And that's sort of, you know, what Urban Timber does. So it's nice to see the visual texture of the wood grain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it really depends on a person's taste, right? I mean, we talked about kitchen design just before, or design trends before Christmas. And, you know, I think ultimately, trends are exciting, but ultimately you want to make sure it's a reflection of yourself. So, you know, just because like we did a whole bunch of, you know, dark kitchens like this in the last few years, I like the look of them personally, but I wouldn't necessarily want that in my house. And I think if you'd hopped on a trend like that and you grew tired of it, it would be pretty disappointing. That's a pretty major change to swap out later. So I would say the design trends, it's really, I like to kind of monitor what's out there, but I always kind of go back to where we started the conversation today is let's go back to that client's needs. Let's look at their home and let's try to make it a reflection of them that best suits their, you know, their specific family and their taste.
Absolutely. It's like when I get a very generic request for, can you come up with a layout? And it's like, well, I can, but until I get to know a client, I can't give it any personality. And we always want to make sure that the kitchen reflects the client personality, and that the kitchen itself has personality. This one here is absolutely this client's personality. They were artisans, they do pottery, they wanted a nice warm medium wood, they wanted areas to be able to display a little bit of their own pottery. And like when I see this kitchen, it just makes me think of the clients. They're lovely people, and this kitchen is just perfect for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's go back to talking a bit about the layout considerations, and I guess we'll talk about kitchen layouts, because I know that we have there's a bunch of them, right? But if I was to whack-a-mole through a few, we have the one-wall kitchen, which is pretty self-explanatory. You have the galley, the L shape, the U shape, the island kitchen, and the peninsula kitchen would be some that just pop up off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I would say that, I guess my question for you then would be, do you see one of those layouts being the most efficient when it comes to space planning and use?
I find that anytime you can get really good continuous counter space, that's the most effective use of space. Now, a peninsula has the most continuous counter space. However, it's not typically the most appealing to a lot of people. They like the thought of having an island, and so a lot of times we end up doing an island versus a peninsula. But the key would be to have good continuous counter space, like in any situation. So you want to have a nice flow next to the sink, a minimum of 36 inches right next to the sink. And if it's a matter of shifting the sink off the window, let's say, to be able to gain that amount of counter space, then we look at those things. And I will make those suggestions all the time, every time. And if someone disagrees and says, I have to have this here, then we do that too. So,
right. I mean, it's their home ultimately, right?
Sorry?
It's their home ultimately, so we'll do what's asked, but I believe it's our duty to speak up and let them know why there might be a better way, or how there's a better way to do it, and what the downside might be to what it is that they want. And at the end of the day, you do your due diligence, you communicate those things to the client, and if they still insist that the sink is by the window because they want to have a view, well, that's a very valid point.
Yes, yes. It's like when we talk about an island and a client wants seating on the island. I don't necessarily always try to just put one row of seating along the side, because it's not very conversational. When you're sitting there and you're talking to your spouse, your kids, it's nice to be able to kind of maybe be across from one another, or at least around the corner from each other, instead of being sort of elbow to elbow. So it looks nice, but is it sort of the best function for the people using it? So
absolutely, good point.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's just tuning in, this is the Art of Renovation Live. I'm your host, Paul Foster, and we have Rebecca Gagne here from Cucina. And we're talking about kitchen cabinet design. And right now we're still in kitchen layouts, but talking about what's the most efficient layout, if there is one that really proves to be the champ. And it sounds like, wherever you can maximize the most amount of continuous counter space seems to be the winner. So that would lend itself to a peninsula, but that doesn't always work. But here's one that we did recently, and you can't see it well, but there's also an island. This one got a bit of the best of both worlds here.
Yeah. Look at that good counter space on the peninsula there. That's great.
Yeah, there's lots of nice room to work there for sure. Anyhow, these photos aren't coming up the way I'd hoped they would, so that's enough about that one, I guess. Great. So what about, like, the galley kitchen is one that people refer to often. What are your thoughts on the galley?
Can be very functional. It as long as you have, again, maintain your work triangle. You don't want to have any leg of your work triangle to be less than 4 feet. I try actually not to, if possible, have, say, a range and a sink completely back to back, because if someone's cooking and someone's cleaning up, then you're you're sort of back to back, and you might be bumping into each other a little bit there. So I try to stagger those items if possible. If a client is intent on symmetry, then we can work with that. But and then also not to have a distance longer than 9 feet if possible. So in a galley kitchen, you probably want to put a tall thing off to an end, have good counter space in between, and then just make sure a person's not having to walk further than 9 feet if possible, and have them walk in a straight line from one thing to the next too. That's quite important. We never want anyone having to travel around the corner of their island every time from their sink to, say, back to their fridge. So trying to make everything super functional, and galley kitchens work quite well for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really depends, right? I mean, I think you take what each person feels they want out of their kitchen, and you do your best to kind of manage. If some really want that, we don't see it so much anymore, but people used to really want that raised bar on the back of the peninsula or the island. And that's something we take out quite often now, because they prefer just the one level surface, the overhang, and it's a bigger countertop. And people often want to display this beautiful slab now. So absolutely, without cutting it all up into pieces and whatnot, right? So
it's far more flexible to have one large surface. You can work from the other side of it. You can really spread out and do large baking projects. One day we'll be able to have friends over to do Christmas baking again, and it's far more flexible than breaking it up with the raised top.
Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. Let's talk about our giveaway item here for a second, as it's been a couple of minutes here. All right, so Rebecca has offered up this beautiful cutting board. There it is in the flesh, I guess, not the flesh, in the wood. In the wood. Anyway, so anyone who's commented so far, asked a question, you are entered into the draw. At the end of the show, we'll do a random draw, and the winner will get this beautiful cutting board, which you can then pick up from Cucina Bella. Okay, so thanks very much for offering that up.
Problem.
Okay. So let's see here. Island, peninsula, size, and layout options. So that's, I think, the island. Let's start with the island. Okay. So let's reintroduce this, because I think it's an important conversation. So if you're just tuning in, I'm Paul from Contact Renovations. This is the Art of Renovation Live. Today we're talking about kitchen cabinet design with Rebecca Gagne from Cucina Bella. And now we're talking about your island, things to consider. So the one thing I want to get off my chest early about the island is people often want a nice big island, and that's fantastic. It can serve as a major focal point, a meeting area, a really multi-use space in a variety of ways. But they get very heavy when you put a huge slab of granite or solid stone on there. And you need to take into consideration what that means structurally for your home, because we've seen some of these big massive islands now. We've done a couple with double sinks in them and a little bar sink, and then you have appliances in there, and you've got a big giant 8x12 slab of granite on there. That weighs thousands of pounds, and we've had to go and beef up some floor structure before to achieve that. So it's something to consider. There's your builder beef on the big island. It's just raise awareness about it, right? People need to consider that when you're considering your kitchen reno. It might go a lot deeper than just the beauty of your kitchen. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the island?
It's good that you say that, because a lot of times I have discussions with clients, and we plan these massive islands, and I say they're not islands, they're small continents, because they end up so big. And I do have to always defer and say, okay, well, we're going to have to find out if this is possible, right? And what are the parameters around that? But islands you can do so much with. I always find too that once you set the footprint of the island, you plan the clearances around it, and then you've got the footprint. You have to know what style the client is after, contemporary or traditional, because you would lay out the island and put certain things on the island that you wouldn't for a different style. Like, for example, in this transitional kitchen, The client requested some really simple legs on one end. We've got two sort of seating areas, and this is one of my favorites. Is if a client were to sit on the end and then have a family member around the side, that's conversational, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that nice little landing area on this end too for things coming out of the oven. And then they've got that nice big workspace on the other side. And actually facing the cooktop is a beautiful open area where we display their Le Creuset. They have a rainbow of colors in their Le Creuset, and they wanted to be able to display that. So this is a beautiful mix between traditional and transitional. The wood is slightly more traditional, and then we've blended it with kind of more transitional. But so the prep sink on the island is always quite a nice thing to have when, again, the sink is a little bit further away. The main sink is further away from the fridge. And again, two people can work beautifully in this kitchen because the main sink is kind of to the right of the range over there, and we've got the prep sink there. And the garbage is in here too. You've got a recycled garbage on the island.
Nice. Yeah, those are very handy. We had a couple questions here. First of all, we have the River City Tile Company, more with a comment. Yes, your island is heavier than a car. The tile guy's worst nightmare. And absolutely, if that floor is not completely solid, there's any movement, then your tile is going to pop, and that someone's going to be very upset. It'll probably start with the client and the contractor, and then down to the tile guy, which that's a problem.
Yeah.
We have another question here from RadTech. I love how much. Oh wait, sorry. No, how much sink is too much for your island? I would love a big farmer sink, but it would be a third of my island. So I guess that question would be then: are you talking practically for use, or how much is that thing going to weigh? I don't think weight would be a major issue depending on the size of your overall island, but I think practically speaking, I'm sure Rebecca has something to comment on that.
It's a great question. You want to have a minimum of 18 inches of counter space on one side of the sink and 24 inches on the other side. That's the minimum. So if it's a third, perhaps it's taking up a little too much, and you might want to make it a little bit smaller and do a single sink. You definitely want to make sure you've got even just the minimums on either side.
Yeah, I would agree. And we've seen it before where someone has a very large sink and not enough countertop on either side to be able to put your dirty dishes down. Right? So I think really same would apply for your range or any kind of work area. Do you have enough staging area around that appliance, right?
Right. And as I said before too, that next to the main, you want at least 36 inches of space to work, because you tend to do your prepping, your rinsing vegetables, fruit, that sort of thing. You want to have that, at least that amount of space next to it. So you might consider a smaller sink.
Yeah, I would think so. So I guess RadTech maybe go down a size.
Yep.
And I would say that regardless, if you're planning a new kitchen, then you would factor that, that apron sink into your cabinet design. Often people don't realize when you switch to a farmhouse or apron sink, you need to modify your cabinets to be able to do so, which sometimes is not even possible. You might need to just replace the units below and on either side, depending on the layout.
Definitely. It's a different configuration. And talking about weight too, we typically have to beef up what's going on inside the cabinet as well. So it's not just swapping out sink, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think this kitchen we did, this client wanted quite a dramatic countertop, but you can't, the angle's not good, but this has a large farmhouse sink in it, and it required some significant modification to the cabinetry there. But okay, so let's see here. What do we have next on our list here? So we have the lowered work area. We talked about that briefly as far as, I guess, while you froze up. I don't know if you heard me, but I was talking about a kitchen that we'd done. This is the one. And at the far end of this long island, we had a lowered area that was for baking. Mm-hmm. And it made it a bit easier for the homeowner then to, make her dough and roll things out without having your arms up at that 36-inch countertop height.
Yeah. Yeah, it's smart to have, especially if you're an avid baker. The other thing we do for avid bakers is mixer lifts, other types of items that make things easier for that task. We don't, again, once you raise or lower a surface, you're kind of breaking up that continuity of it. So you have to be quite certain that you're dedicated to that, and that's you're going to live with that, right? And so you have to love baking and perhaps be shorter too. But on that as well, we've had clients that are extra tall, and so we've increased the height of their base cabinetry. And again, shorter clients, of course, we try to maintain a height that's comfortable for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's all tailored to the client, right? So
exactly.
I think another thing to consider about the large island is also your slab. And I don't have photos of it, but we did a penthouse renovation a couple of years ago, and the client picked this beautiful slab of quartzite. It was like the crown jewel of the project. And they're up in the penthouse in a tower downtown, and this slab wouldn't fit in the elevator.
Oh dear.
So we had to cut this slab in half to get it in. The other option was to get a crane and crane it to the top floor of the penthouse, but you can imagine the costs associated with that. So, you know, when you're considering your big island and you're selecting your countertop for it, you need to factor in the consideration of a seam. And any good countertop installer can do a good seam, but there's some tops that don't hide a seam as well, especially if you have some veining that really is a solid color, and especially in the off whites. Like white's actually a tough color to seam at times. So just consider that when you go for your big island. Remember, you might need to have a seam, and if you do, you know, kind of plan your slab selection based on that, because the one that we had to cut in half, it was a beautiful natural pattern on there, and it was really kind of a shame that we had to cut it, but it looked beautiful in the end. Really only myself and the client knew because we cut it, but at a glance you'd never see the seam. But it's just one of those things that it was that or 10 grand to get a crane and lift it up. So, you know, the lesser
good
of two.
Choice. Yeah, the seam was a good choice.
What else do I got then? So countertop style. So I know this is a little bit outside of what you do in cabinet design, but let's talk about the countertop for a second, because it can be a very much a feature, or it can be something very subtle. You know, and I guess within the design and the coloring of your cabinets, you need to consider how everything's going to tie together. Do you have any thoughts on countertop design and things outside of the cabinetry?
Definitely. The thing I always try to steer clients towards is looking at visual texture. So the cabinets themselves, are they a solid color, or do they read as solid? So there's not a lot of grain in the cabinetry. So then you have the potential for adding some visual texture. So do we look at then something that has some veining in it? A lot of clients are asking for still a nice white with a bit of a vein throughout it. The marble is a nice visual texture. Potentially, if you have a lot of counter space, you could do the island in something that's more dramatic, like that one kitchen that you had, and then the perimeter countertops in something that reads more solid. The other part of that is looking at the finish of the countertops. You have the potential to do actual tactile texture, so either a matte finish or a leathered or honed type finish with something that's got a bit of a shine to it. So being able to let your eye sort of dance around and grab onto things that have visual texture or a veining to it without overpowering. So you want to make sure you're mindful of a good blend of those two things, and tactile texture and maybe smooth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think during the design stage, we often have to consider, like, well, what is the sheen of the countertop versus the backsplash tile? You have under cabinet lighting, you have overhead lighting with the pot lights or the LED panel lights, you have your task lighting. How is that light all going to reflect? So I think within a good design, these considerations are all addressed, because it can be very irritating. I'm sensitive to light. So for me, a big reflection bright spot on my countertop or backsplash while I'm trying to work, and if you're doing some very fine cutting, that can be a distraction to the point where, you know, you could have a mishap. So I know these are like some pretty granular concerns I'm getting into, but I believe it is our job ultimately to help you make the right choice, right? So,
yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, we're about 135, just over halfway through. We might as well try to give away this cutting board again.
Sure.
Make sure people know about it because some new folks have joined in here. So we've got this beautiful cutting board donated by Rebecca over at Cucina Bella. And to enter into the draw, I just got to make a comment, maybe ask a question. And at the end of the show, we'll do a random draw, and the winner can go pick this thing up from Cucina Bella. It's a beautiful accessory. And yeah, it's fun. Like we use them. I have a bunch of them at home because we make them too sometimes, and my dad makes them and whatnot. And it's as much as a nice little display sometimes as it is an actual work surface. So it's
exactly.
They're fun. Anyhow, if you're just tuning in, this is Paul from Renovations. This is the Art of Renovation Live, and we're talking about kitchen cabinet design here with Rebecca Gagne from Cucina Bella. So let's talk a bit about some of the options within a kitchen. And I haven't showed too many videos while I do this show, but let's try. I got one of the Le Mans unit, and it's a game changer for an inside corner. And I guess here's a couple no-brainer. The pullouts now, the pullouts too, that's pretty amazing. You can talk a bit about pullouts and some of the options you like, and I'll go looking for this video.
Okay. One of my favorites is actually in this photo. It's the one on the right. And you can store so many small, medium, and somewhat large items in that pullout. And I know because I have one. And if you ever come see me, I will try to talk you into one of these because they're just the most wonderful things. The top rows, you put your smaller spices. The middle row, somewhat medium. And then you can notice that middle shelf, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a bit of an S shape. So that allows for slightly taller bottles like oil dispensers, maybe some balsamics, things like that are just slightly taller. They can go in the front of where that S curves in, and then bottles that are slightly shorter than that behind. So the problem is typically when you adjust a shelf, you have to adjust it to your tallest bottle. So in this case, you can actually have a couple of sizes there. So that's one of my favorites.
We got a question here from UC Howe. Would you recommend a pot filler?
I would probably have to talk to you about how much pasta you make or boiling items or that type of thing. You have to remember that the pot filler, it's difficult to install on an exterior wall. Paul, can you attest to that? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there are ways we can do it, but yeah, it certainly does pose some logistical challenges for us.
Right. The fixture itself comes with a bit of a price tag because it's more of an item that's rare, I guess you could say. So you don't have quite less options for that, and then so they're a little bit more expensive. And then when you do fill, say it is pasta or something, you're filling with water, you're still having to carry the pot over to the sink and drain it. So there are sort of steps in there that you have to kind of consider. And then also, I mean, some people just get it because they think they look cool, which, you know what, good for them. But right, you have to just sort of look at yourself and is it something that you think that you would use on a regular basis? Yeah,
I mean, basically it's going to cost you probably anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500 to add that feature in, depending on what model you pick and how much we have to change within our rough plumbing, our insulation, if it's an outside wall, and how we are going to make that actually deliverable.
Right.
Radtech's asking, how hard would it be to add those and match up the rest of my cabinets, or would it be a good time to swap it all out? I guess you're referring to those pullouts.
Oh, yes. Those are a lot trickier to install in a retrofit situation. Oh, I think you're cutting out a bit there, Rebecca.
I will try and finish your thought for you, but I would agree that in a retrofit, the pullout's tricky because you do need to have certain clearances in there. And, you know, if you have too much space, that's one thing. But if it's a little bit on the narrow side, I think you'll have to modify more than just those cabinets there. Oh, Patty's weighing in. Yeah, she's right. It depends on what your current have for your bait cabinets.
Oh,
I think
back.
Rebecca's kind of back. She's
I'm back.
Oh, there you go. You're back.
I'm here.
All right. It's all good. So I think so often RadTech, maybe you should give Rebecca a call after the show and you guys should start planning a kitchen, or depends on the section of kitchen where you want these. You might be able to get away with only replacing one wall or one section, depending on whether or not what you have now can accommodate the pullout.
True. Yeah.
And yeah, pullouts, I mean, I found the video, but let's talk about some pullouts for a second, because they're really, like, pullouts are really diverse, and you can kind of integrate them throughout your kitchen depending on where you feel you're going to need them. We just did we do pullouts now in almost all of our kitchens. There's different ways you can do them, and they can cost more or less depending on what product you pick. The pullouts themselves can be, they can get pricey for sure, but it's definitely a feature that is worth incorporating. Here's a way to do it that's a little bit less expensive, where you make kind of a pantry unit and you have these pull-out little drawers inside. And that doesn't cost as much as the large pull-out unit, especially a floor-to-ceiling height. So that's one option, one way to consider getting some of that function without all of the accessibility.
And you know what I like about this option too, Paul, is that you don't have to pull out the entire contents of your pantry just to get a can of chickpeas. Right. That's, and then the adjustability of some of those large ones, when you weigh them down, they can become a problem. Even the most expensive, you know, really durable ones, they can become an issue with adjustment. So for me, this is my favorite way of doing it. I would rather customize every pullout. We can change the heights of them, so you can do them taller if you have a lot of smaller bags or specialty flowers or things like that that you want to stack. And then we can adjust the spacing in between them too. So to me, that's my favorite.
Yeah, and they're very practical. And like I said, they aren't nearly as expensive. And you're right, like the full-size pullout, it gets expensive, and if you don't go with the high quality hardware, you will regret it later, because you'll be able to tell that you're pulling out 100 or who knows many pounds of pantry to get your can of chickpeas, right? So yeah, so definitely the different ways to approach it depends on, you know, what you want. And again, I mean, the look of the nice full size, they look really pretty. It's kind of a nice feature, but it isn't always the best solution. It really depends on your kitchen and what you're after.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to show you this little video of this Le Mans unit. So this is the solution for the Lazy Susan. This is the big brother of the Lazy Susan, I guess.
Yeah.
Or sister, whatever. But really helpful. I mean, they aren't cheap, but it sure beats reaching into the corner. I have a Lazy Susan, inside corner cabinet in my house, and the other one's just a shelf, and it's like a rabbit hole down there. I hate going into it, but
you need a small child to go fish things out.
That's right.
The nice thing too about the Le Mans is the bottoms are slightly grippy. I know the ones that we sell, they are slightly grippy. So if you're really vigorous with in and out, the items that are on the shelf shouldn't slide around too much.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
We've got MK Chow asking, if you could only splurge on one feature, what would you recommend?
Oh, honestly, the appliances. I know I'm a cabinet person, but appliances to me, you know, that's why you're there. So I would probably look at perhaps a 36-inch range. I would splurge on something a little bit larger, or cooktop and double wall ovens, or like a beautiful range like that. Yeah, that's a 36-inch French range. And of course the cabinets, of course we'll say the cabinets, but yeah, look at appliances always kind of come first. Those are something you should definitely look at, kind of be decided on. Are you doing a cooktop, wall ovens, or would you rather have a range? What's the size of fridge that you're looking at? All of those things we sort of need to know before we start planning the kitchen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I would agree, because the range, like your appliance group, that's really that's the key components of your kitchen. Because
While
if
you're
you didn't
there,
have if you had a laminate countertop instead of a quartz countertop, you could still cook.
you could. And you could change that out after a while
You
too,
certainly
right?
can, but
Yeah.
you definitely, if your oven doesn't work well, or your cooktop, I have a cooktop that it's either maximum or minimum heat, and it drives me crazy because I'm
Yeah.
either like undercooking or burning, and it's one of those things where we're just waiting to do our kitchen. It's the classic, the
You're the
renovator with the house that
shoemaker,
needs a reno.
right?
But, I mean, we are renovating the house, but the kitchen we're going to hold off on because we have some bigger plans for it. But definitely, I would say, look at your appliances and plan them well. Like in this case, you have the double oven, would be an oven. I'm assuming that's a microwave above it, or it could be a warming drawer.
Convection,
Convection.
microwave, right? Or steam or speed oven, so that does the dual purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's great. Like some people always thought, oh, that was such a frivolous span to go to wall ovens and a double oven. And in the end, it can be such a game changer depending on how you use your space and how you entertain and how you cook. And sometimes you don't know how good you can have it if you get the right appliance group in there. And also it can be very much a beautiful focal point, like this gas range here. See, Rebecca's freezing up again here. She must be in the Shaw Cable end of the city. Sorry, no hate to Shaw, but anyways. Okay, so while we wait for Rebecca to come back, we'll look at some of these pictures.
Back.
Hey, you're back. There's the appliance lift.
Oh, there it is.
So I don't have the video of it going upwards, but for anybody who loves to bake or you have a heavier appliance, you can get these lifts, and they basically are like a hydraulic assist. And you can basically bring this up without having to really exert any more effort than reaching down to push the release button.
Yeah, some clients, I mean, this KitchenAid's a lovely looking mixer. There are some companies that make beautiful small appliances, but some clients just don't want them on the counter. So this is a nice alternative to that. It's functional, easy to use, and then there's typically a space underneath where a rollout will fit, and then you can keep the splash guard and some of the other attachments that you do get with a mixer.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done these before, actually, and it was a bit of a challenge, but the actual top or the shelf of the mixer, we used the same product as the countertop. And
oh, wow.
It looked really slick, but it made for a fairly heavy, that added about 30 pounds to the weight in addition to the mixer. So you had to make sure you had good hardware for that. But it just depends on what floats your boat ultimately, where you want to put your money and what's important to you in your design and how things look.
Well, and something that comes up too, Paul, and you can speak to this, is clients ask, well, can I just keep cabinet?
Oh, no.
By code, put a plug in a cabinet. Is that correct?
It's true. You're not supposed to have any sort of electrical device connected inside of a drawer or a cabinet. And we had actually a question earlier I meant to answer about what's available now for charging stations inside of your drawers and things like that. And realistically, nothing. You're not really supposed to do it. But we get asked to do it all the time, and it becomes something of being creative about how you design it, where it's either open front, so it's technically not enclosed within a drawer or a cabinet. But so officially on the record, you can't do it. Check if you're in Edmonton, I know you can't, but there might be other areas where the bylaws are different or the rules might be different, depending. Check with your electrical inspector or ask your contractor to look into it for you. Okay. Now you're back.
There I am. Sorry, I don't know.
It's all right. It happens. It's technology, right? It's
Yeah.
the way it goes. Um, this is a cool little feature that I like from one of the photos you sent over. Tell me a bit about this one.
This is an area just off of the kitchen that the clients are using for entertaining. So in this set of run of cabinetry, we've got these beautiful paneled fridge drawers. So this is where they're going to store all of their beverages that they want to cool. And then we also have glassware in this section as well. Bottle openers, that type of thing, that's all being stored in this area. Fridge doors are an excellent addition if you can afford them to have in your kitchen, especially if you have a very large kitchen and your main fridge feels like it's really far from the prep space.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently did a actual chef's kitchen, a restaurant owner, and they had put one in their island, a small section of fridge doors to have those right there, because the main fridge was a little sort of further around the island than convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great feature. Definitely very much budget dependent.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, if you love to cook and that's a big part of how you entertain and that's where you get joy in your life, then that's probably a good place to put, you know, to put some money and invest in having it the way that you want it. But I believe that with all of these options, it's our job to let the client know what's available. And it's not a matter of we're trying to sell them this feature. Let them rule it out. Because I can see in the comments today, some people didn't even know the Le Mans unit was available. Like, there's so many new options and technologies that are out there now that are relatively new in the marketplace that people might be unaware of. And I believe it's up to your contractor, your designers to help show you what is available. Like, look at this pull-out. It's got a really cool knife holder at the top, and then, you know, held bottles down below, can put cutting boards in there. There's so many cool options that I believe you need to at least look at them and then go, yeah, you know what, that's awesome, but it's not in my budget. Well, at least you knew it and you had the opportunity to turn it down. Not find out later, holy smokes, if I'd known that was available, I would have done it for sure. That, in my opinion, is, you know, would be a bummer. Let's do last call on our giveaway item because we're getting towards the end of the show. So we've got this beautiful cutting board up for grabs. Thank you, Rebecca, for offering it up. So if you've entered a comment or a question throughout the show, then you're now entered into the draw. And we'll do the live draw here in a couple minutes. And then I'll get a text message that says who the winner is. And you can then go pick it up from Rebecca at Cucina Bella. And maybe that's a great time to look at their showroom.
Yes.
Take a look around at some of the options that are available. And yeah, and you can go from there. Mm-hmm. So if there's any more questions out there, let's take a look here. MK Child says he has these fridge drawers in our bedside tables.
Nice.
Oh, there you go. Game changer, no doubt. Yeah, that's a genius knife holder. Radtech loves these pullouts. Is your guest contact on this post somewhere? Missed the start. Well, you know what? It hasn't been on there yet, but you're one step ahead of me, but we're getting there. So if you want to get a hold of Rebecca and you have questions about a kitchen design, I'm going to show you how to do it. Give me 1 second here. So Rebecca, she works at Cucina Bella. There's information on the page. There's a website, social media handles, email address, and phone number. So definitely, if you have a kitchen design in mind, I would say reach out to Rebecca and the team at Cucina Bella, and they'd be happy to help you out and steer you in the right direction.
Indeed.
Rebecca, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been great. Thanks for sharing with us not just your beautiful photos, but some of your insights into design. And I can really see that you know, interior design background helps a lot within the kitchens that you design, because you know, it's all about balancing that function and the fashion together. Absolutely. That's how you get a good design, right? So all function, no fashion, it's going to work great, but it's not going to be that attractive.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We got a winner. All right. So winner of the cutting board is Maggie Molly Polly. Congratulations. You're the winner. And I know a lot of these people that are here today. I know them from the Pay It Forward YAG campaign we ran before Christmas. We gave away a bunch of gift cards to some local businesses. So it's great to see you guys out there supporting us and checking out the show. And yeah, so Maggie, Molly, Polly, congratulations. And I guess if you have questions about a project that's maybe beyond just the kitchen, and your kitchen designer will tell you straight up if a general contractor should be involved, because there's a lot that goes into a kitchen project. If you have questions about a project, you're planning renovation, you want to sure about technical aspects behind how to make your job deliverable, then give us a shout. Whether you want help from us as your contractor or just want some advice from me, I'm happy to help out. I love what I do, and I'm happy to share what I know. And if I don't know it, I go looking for the right people who do. And that's what makes a good team. It takes a village. And that's why I'm talking to Rebecca right now, because, you know, we do great work, but it takes great designs, great products, and a lot of experience to make sure it gets done right the first time. So, yeah. Anyhow, let's see here. No more questions. We got 5 minutes. Better ask some questions or it's going to be dad jokes time soon. So, let's take a look here. Actually, I got a couple images here that we didn't show that I wanted to ask you about. So here's one that I posted recently on our social media. And this is a kitchen from, I think, 3 or 4 years ago that we did. And it was all about, you know, looking for a way to find some balance. And we made this big oval feature for their bulkhead and their lighting. We looked for a way to do their rounded end cabinet. And it wasn't, you know, your average cabinet maker is not making that cabinet. What are your thoughts about that, I guess, as far as the rounded cabinets and these very custom, unique options?
It's yeah, it's certainly something that's going to cost more for sure. Curved cabinets are beautiful though. In our showroom we have a gorgeous S-shaped ensuite vanity with double sinks. It's beautiful. It's an American apple wood. It's absolutely stunning, and it kind of becomes the feature of the kitchen too. So if you like curves, and again, sort of shapes are a thing where you might like just straight lines, clean lines, but again, we have the room for looking at organic shapes, and you want to make quite a feature. I think a curve on an end would be beautiful. The S-shaped vanity that's in our showroom is stunning, but you know, specifically to a client, right? Again,
yeah,
this kitchen will show personality to the end user.
Yeah, definitely. I got a question from Jeff Lidgy or Geo Fliggy.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Sorry, I can't pronounce your handle very well here, but does an island height fluctuate depending on chef's height?
It can. The one thing that we'll run into is if there are any appliances in the island, dishwashers specifically, a lot of them don't have a lot of range of adjustability and height. Some of the European models we can shorten quite a bit to accommodate, say, a shorter chef. Typically, we sort of stick within the 36-inch height range. But again, we can sort of adjust slightly higher, slightly lower. Sometimes we have to shorten the cabinets to accommodate a thicker countertop, let's say. And then again, we have to kind of consider the dishwasher, and can we shorten that to accommodate. But I have had taller clients where we've increased the height of everything. They chose a range, so we had to install a platform under the range, under the dishwasher, to raise everything up. So it's if that's it, you're using it, it doesn't bother you, who, you know, nobody's gonna have it after you, you're gonna live in this forever, make it your own. Why not? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think anything is possible. It just depends on your spend. And I hate to say it, but that's the truth, right? If you wanted a shorter countertop or a lower countertop, well, you can do it, but you're now looking at some very custom and not as readily available appliance packages and things of that nature, right? So everything will then cost more due to availability and all that stuff. So again, thanks so much for all the questions and participation today. Rebecca, it's been a great show. We'll have to do this again here. Maybe we'll talk about bathroom vanities. That's a whole different fish that we can fry. There's a lot of very specific things that can go in there. Again, if you have questions about your kitchen design, specifically, reach out to Rebecca at Cucina Bella. If you have questions about a larger project, you need some advice, some direction, give me a shout, call the office, the number's on the screen, send me an email.
Oh.
And yeah, thank you so much. Rebecca, take care. We'll be in touch again soon. Thanks everyone for watching the Auto Renovation Live. I'm your host, Paul Foster from Contractor.